Ta-da! It's not a thing.
We just fed her, so she's kind of fat and sassy. She had a nice big juicy caterpillar off a cabbage plant. She was very happy with that.
This is that bait I was telling you about that these collectors have been using. So they were successful in getting a black witch moth. It's really cool. Hey guys, do you still have the moth? Would you mind showing it? Oh yeah. Oh, look how big it is. It's really beautiful. When I was growing up, my mother and stepfather owned a large piece of land, 24 acres, and I would spend a lot of time outside just kind of poking around and finding things. And what I loved about the natural world is I loved to see things rot. Something about insects, it kind of approaches that place in us that is the same fascination that we have in circuses for things like a bearded lady. They're just sort of like outside of our day-to-day experience, and so I think that mortality is sort of got this strange beauty and this kind of dark draw for us. If you've ever spent any time digging around in compost, you'll know that there are some really incredible creatures in there. Some that look like really large, kind of nasty things. Like there's a part in the Wrath of Khan where they drop a bug into the guy's ear and it's supposed to go in and eat his brain. And there's a lot of things in your compost that look just like that. And even without ever seeing that clip in film, you still have that sense of like, whoa, what is that? Okay, you want it like everybody else's, Felix? I recognized in myself, if I were going to be a really successful bench scientist in the current way that academia works, I would really need to be devoting my whole self to that. And I have a family, and I wanted to make sure I had time also to be a mother, and so I've sort of retooled a little bit, and now I spend more time teaching and doing outreach and engagement.
You get it?
Yeah.
Wow, you actually did.
Actually got a washed one.
Nice catch.
Ever since I was a little kid, I'd be wandering around in the fall or in the summer. I was just always intrigued by the insects, the small things. I was little. Some people are intrigued by, seeing a football or a basketball, or some people are intrigued by, getting a paintbrush. I was intrigued by the beautiful wasps and the bees. I don't really, look forward to getting stung. It's just kind of one of the hazards of my chosen, activities in life, that I'm trying to answer questions about stinging insects. I'd been stung, like I said, probably 500 or 1,000 times by honeybees. So I said, well, we've got to get some numbers. We've got to rate that owl is less than that owl, which is less than that owl. How do we do that? Well, come up with a pain scale. I usually work on the higher levels, the genus, which is kind of like a cluster of species that are all very similar. So the number I usually go by is, in the book Sting of the Wild, where I made a table of these, an appendix in the back, I have 83 listed. 10 fire ant stings hurt me about as much as 1 honeybee sting. So you can continue that extrapolation. The 10 honeybee sting will hurt about as much as 1 good Maricopa harvester ant. That's the red harvester ants we see running around on the sidewalks here in Tucson and the Southwest. you got 10 of those, 10 of the harvester ants would be about equivalent to one bullet ant or one tarantula hawk. So that's pretty much relationship. There fortunately aren't any fives.
I'm Coyote Peterson, and I love animals. I don't care if they're scaly, scary, hairy, toothy, or absolutely huge. Look at that swamp beast. Guys, do be aware that if I do immediately go into a state of paralysis, just...
They've got a sting that's about electrified in one word. And if you can imagine that, that's about what it feels like. It's instantaneous, it's electrifying, it's clean, it's sharp, it's very pure. It just totally shuts you down. It's like short-circuiting your brain. So I tell people, if you get stung, don't try to be tough and all that. Just lay down. Lay down and scream. That bees and stinging ants and wasps have won that war because they get into our head.
For instance, a lot of people are afraid of shark attacks. But, you know, I recently saw a statistic that actually humans bite more humans on the New York City subway than sharks bite humans. And so similarly, mosquitoes are an incredible problem because they transmit malaria. They can be fatal because of what they're carrying. And so, yeah, I think sometimes our sensation, our fear doesn't necessarily map to where the actual risk occurs. We're all here together. This is like one planet, and we've had a lot of time here on this planet together, interacting with one another in these nuanced ways that science is just starting to uncover. It's one of the most exciting times in biology, but I'm sure that every biologist throughout time has said that. So,
when we think about the history of humans understanding the world around them and pursuing science, one of the very first steps were these explorations of the world, major collecting expeditions, where Charles Darwin and Wallace would travel, collect specimens, bring them back. I think of it as a map, like creating a map of the biological world. We still do that type of research, and we're still learning a lot. We're discovering new species. I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I pursued marine biology for my master's degree. I studied marine isopods that live in the South Pacific Islands, and for collecting, I would put on full scuba gear and go diving. And that was a really fantastic and fun experience. I also fell in love with my advisor, who was one of the most amazing, open-hearted people I had ever met. We were in love, and we decided to get married. And it was a lot of big decisions all at one time. I needed to make a shift so that there wouldn't be such an overlap between my professional and personal lives. And so I decided to switch to entomology to study basically the crustaceans of the land. I specialize on bombardier beetles. Bombardier beetles are special carabids. They are these masters of chemistry. They mix chemicals inside of their bodies in a way that creates an exothermic reaction just before it leaves the body of the beetle. My collaborators and I have a grant through the National Science Foundation where we're able to look at the genes involved in the production of defensive chemicals for these bombardier beetles. They'll blast you when you collect them, and it doesn't hurt too bad. It's not as hot as Brachynes, the other lineage of bombardier. It's not the boiling point of water, but it's definitely a bit of a shock.
Turned around and driven away.
My personal mission tonight is to try to get more of those new species, the small-bodied ones, but also to get as many of the larger Goniotropus kunstni as possible.
Beyond this point, so we're going to be in new territory.
But once you've seen a few of them, you get an eye for it, and then just out of the corner of your eye, you'll see a black something moving at just the right speed, and it'll catch your attention, and you turn, and it'll usually be just out of reach. I used to work on marine crustaceans, and insects are basically just flying crustaceans. So. But the most exciting thing I ever did was hook up with Wendy on a Polynesia expedition to Tahiti and Guam and Fiji, and that was the beginning of Wendy and I.
Golly!
Oh my gosh, there.
Ow! Mating Goniotropus, too. That's incredible.
Was that the noise they made?
Yeah,
Yes,
those were,
right.
that noise with the black.
That sounds worse than Plotinus. Everyone's so happy, even though
I got some burning on my fingers from the bombardier blast. That was very fun. Wow. Now here, that is probably Cylindus.
Today we're looking at a Malaise trap sample, and that is kind of a flight intercept trap. So this is a really convenient way to trap a lot of insects. I think what's extraordinary about looking through a Malaise trap sample is that there's so many different shapes and colors and textures. I think the other thing about insects that's amazing is that they've been here for a lot longer, and they dominate Earth. They're in pretty much every habitat except for like benthic in the sea. Being in all of these different habitats and occupying all these different niches is what has allowed them to modify all these different structures to fit those spaces. So that's part of it too, is that the story is kind of writ in the body. Flies generally have piercing/sucking mouth parts. They look like puppies. They've got these beautiful little brown, wide-spaced eyes. Wow, that has a really crazy mouth too. Whoa, this one has a crazy abdomen. So insects have an open circulatory system, so their air comes right directly into their body at different points along the whole length of their bodies. And so the spiracles are sort of equivalent to our nostrils. And it's just sort of odd to think about a nostril on your abdomen. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Toronto, and Toronto is considered one of the most multicultural cities in the world by the United Nations. And I would do this in a little room by myself for several hours, and then I would go outside of the museum where I worked and walk on the sidewalk and think, this is not diverse. I guess like the standard setup of people, I'm over it. Is that weird? Like there's just like a limited number of like types and shapes. This is an insect world. When we just look at the insects, that's 52% of described species. They're related to us on the planet, so we're more closely related to insects than we are to, say, plants, and or microbes, or fungi. These are the major groups of life on our planet.
The reason why beetles are so successful, one of the reasons why, is they've developed a hard protective shell, which is called the elytra, which is actually the front wings, but they protect the hind wings, which are the flight wings. So structural differences are one reason why things can be so successful. Everything's kind of adapted to where they occur. Things, die out that can't adapt, and speciation events takes place. So everything's constantly evolving and changing over time. Those that survive the changes are the ones that are successful.
The field of systematics involves naming species, determining how they're related to one another, and then establishing classification systems, which are nested sets of organisms based on their relatedness. Together, that shows us a map of how organisms evolved throughout the history of life on Earth. What we have here in this collection is the product of all of that time. Our goal is to take these specimens and to keep them forever, for all future generations to study. For me, it just fills me up. It's it's so obvious, that is such a good thing to do.
You definitely always need physical specimens because you can only do so much with an image. An image you can't analyze for molecular analysis. So the specimens in the collection are irreplaceable. If a specimen was lost or damaged, you can't go back to Mount Lemmon in 1942 and recollect that specimen.
When those specimens were collected, the collectors and the people who've curated them all of these years had no idea what kind of sequencing technology was going to come down the line. It used to be that we would need to go collect specimens specifically for molecular phylogenetic analyses. Recent advances in sequencing technology allows us to sequence small pieces of DNA that are very fragmented. Museum collections are filled with specimens that have fractionated DNA that we could not use for genetic projects in the past, but now they're perfectly suited for this new sequencing technology. And there are going to be a lot of other technologies in the future that we can bring to bear on these time capsules. Natural history collections are time machines.
Getting mic'd up. This is like a double mic situation.
Action.
All right, guys, it's a big day on location here in Tucson, Arizona, because I am about to meet the king of sting himself, the godfather of the insect sting pain index, Justin Schmidt. We are right outside of his house, and if you guys are ready, let's go inside and meet the man himself, Justin Schmidt. Expecting millennials. Oh, there he is! I see you've got some of our favorites over here, tarantula hawks.
Yeah, we've got a couple of
Beautiful.
tarantula hawks, celebrities.
You're just going to open that up, huh?
Well, sure, you can see better.
Yeah.
Screens. See if
Everybody at home watching is probably like, wait a minute, he just took the lid off of the tarantula hawk terrarium.
see there.
Oh, you're just going to put your hand in there.
Think so.
Yeah.
But you see, what I'm doing is just demonstrating that they really aren't out to get me. I mean, if they were out to get me, I'd be stung.
Right.
Now, if I put my thumb on the back of them, I'm going to get nailed.
Yeah, but applying pressure is all a part of
And I
it.
don't want you getting out because then I have to catch you.
Yeah,
And that's,
I'll kind of lead us in, and then
Yeah.
I'll ask you some questions, you tell me some stories, I'll give you some of my experiences, and then of course when we're talking about experiences, I think what people really want to know are probably like our top three.
Short that. Action.
Let's
go
stings.
for it.
For me, the tarantula hawk almost put a line in the sand, no pun intended, when it came to completing the sting index, because I will never forget what it was like. First of all, how intimidating that creature is to get that thing in the entomology forceps, and it looks like
And
an
it's
alien.
strong.
It is strong, the wings are going, and you see that quarter-inch stinger coming in and out of that abdomen, and that moment where I'm like, all right,
And it's sharp.
I'm gonna have to place this on my forearm and take this sting And when I finally worked up the courage to do that, you know, I do this countdown where it's 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3,
Bingo.
and boom, you place it down. The sting from that insect was electric in nature. I've been shocked before by accidentally, like, you know, taking a zap from like
Oh, yeah, we all
electrical cord, right? This was that times 10, and it put me on the ground. My arm seized.
Now you're focusing on something else.
Yeah.
Yesterday I woke up at 3 a.m., went to bed at 9:30, and then I got up at 4. Can you put this here, and I have a million other things to do? This morning they were all like, they put them here, and I was like, that's not gonna work. Yay, bugs! Check it out. How many people do you think are here right now?
So beautiful.
5 feet long, 7
When you see, you know, a 5, 6, 8-year-old child explaining science to other members, they're so empowered, and it's really great.
So, cricket.
Yeah, they're like, it's like dehydrated onion. Not bad. It's not bad.
Good? No.
I can guarantee you that over the course of my life, people have wondered why insects, why spend your time thinking about this all the time. But insects do everything, and I love them, and it's okay to follow something that maybe seems different to others, because that love really can fuel you through so much adversity.
Can I help you to read? I never touched a spider in my life.
Does he come to the top that's like a bird or somebody's trying to eat you? Human curiosity is really what drives us. You know, that's one distinguishing characteristic of us versus most other things. We have this insatiable curiosity, and I think we need to feed that. We feed that through music and art and dance and language and poetry. But we feed it through exploring, and science is one of the fields where we explore.
Once you realize how completely spectacular the natural world is, you are very driven to protect it.
There's sheer beauty. That's you know what elevates the human spirit. That's what makes us special. If we aren't special, what are we? We're nothing.